Hey Flock, Mike here from Epic Studios and welcome to the assembly guide for Ahsoka, Jedi No More. This is the Ahsoka that comes in the Shatterpoint starter set, not the separate Padawan Ahsoka model. Just to let you know, that's not the sprue she's actually on. She's on the second sprue with the clone troopers from the 501st, not with Rex and Anakin. I do strongly recommend that you pull up the official assembly guide. You can find that on your phone, tablet, or computer at epicduck.com/Shatterpoint. I'll be using two different plastic cements for this build. The first is Mr. Hobby Mr. Cement S. This is basically the same product as Tamiya Extra Thin Cement, except that I have a local store that carries it. For whatever reason, I just happen to live in a bit of a Tamiya void. I don't know why. The second cement I'll be using is Red Magma from Ammo. This is also very thin. The difference is it has a very small brush and it has a red dye added to it. So when you're doing very small joints, it makes it really easy to see where you've applied the glue and where you need to add some more. So I'm going to point this out right off the bat. Those lightsabers are very fine pieces of plastic. They will be easy to break and we are going to handle them with extreme care. I'm going to begin by clipping everything that's not lightsabers off the sprue. So the clippers I'm using here are God Hand PN125 flush cutters. And they're one of the more affordable pairs of God Hand clippers. They're only about 25 to 30 bucks a pop. And they do a very good job of cutting very close to the pieces of the model without leaving a lot of sprue to clean up. So both lightsabers are supported by this sort of central bit of frame, and I'm clipping it far away from them to release the tension so that it's not pushing on the blades as other things are clipped. From there I can now safely clip both of the shoulders without worrying about causing the lightsaber blades to flex. For now I'm going to set that piece aside and I'll worry about removing both lightsabers from that piece of sprue later. There's just a few more small pieces left to clip here, and then we'll go ahead and clean up those lightsaber blades. So my original intent here was to remove these two blades from the sprue using my cutting mat and an X-Acto blade, but I couldn't really find a good angle to do that where I wasn't putting extra stress on the blade or risking slicing into the blade with the X-Acto knife, so ultimately I scrapped this plan and went ahead and used my flush cutters again. What I did here though was cut it so that a small amount of the sprue was still attached to the blade. So I was basically removing the blade from that inner chunk of frame and leaving a small amount I could then clean up with a knife. So I was able to remove that tiny little bit of sprue from this one blade with the X-Acto knife. On the other blade, there's still just a little bit too much sprue left on there, and it's causing the blade to warp just a little as I push down with the knife. So I decided I don't want to go that route and I use the flush cutters again instead. And even after using the flush cutters, there's still one tiny little bit of that sprue left, so I come back in with the X-Acto knife and just trim that little piece off. I don't want to use a knife from here because I don't want a chance cutting into the blade at all, so I'm very lightly filing down the mold line and the tiny little bumps that are still left. So you can see here that I'm using my fingertip to support the blade by having it directly below the part that I'm filing. Okay, you can stop holding your breath now. The lightsabers both made it through this process in one piece. They're done. Everything else you have to do is really easy and probably isn't going to break in your hand. So all I'm doing now is working through the couple remaining pieces, trimming off the little tiny bits of sprue, any mold lines I find, and just setting them aside, getting ready for assembly. Now if you're like me, you might be a little bit clumsy, and holding onto these small pieces while applying really liquidy cements to them can be difficult. So I'm using a bottle cap with a little bit of poster tack on it to hold the pieces, and this prevents the glue from running into my fingers and getting everywhere. The downside of this approach is that the poster tack can sometimes get caught in small grooves on the miniature, but you can usually pick it off either with a Q-tip or by just pressing it back into the poster tack. It'll kind of pick up any loose bits. Now Ahsoka's head is three pieces. There's the main part of the head, the face, which has one of the Liku on it, and then there's a third Liku that goes on her back. Don't attach that one until her head is already attached to the torso. Now the third Liku can be a little bit difficult to get in there, especially if you've got larger hands, because it's going into a recessed area and it's not a very large piece either. What I ended up doing was using a paintbrush with a little bit of poster tack on the back of the handle and using that to just get the Liku roughly into place and then using a little bit of fingertip pressure to really set it in. Because I really want to lock this piece in place, I'm tapping it with just a little bit of the red magma cement, and you can see the capillary action just takes it all the way around the joint. So with the torso and head assembled, it's time to start putting the legs and hips together. I'm using my handy little poster tack and bottle cap trick because why not? Why risk getting my fingerprints all over this? So I'm applying some plastic cement to the back of the hips, pushing the front of the hips on there, giving it a good little squish together. Make sure it's nice and set, and then we can start attaching the legs to this. Now with the legs, you either put the plastic cement on the little tab on the leg or in the little hole it'll fit into. Either way works, doesn't really matter one way or the other. In fact, I kind of do one of each. Now this is where I'm going to take a really big departure from the assembly instructions. I'm going to attach her legs to the base before putting the torso on. And the reason for that is her legs are pretty sturdy. The rest of the model is pretty small and fragile. I want to put everything together before I attach those really flimsy saber arms. And again, I'm locking the legs down with just a little bit of red magma cement, and now we're attaching the torso to the legs. Once that's cured, you can put a little bit of glue into the shoulder joint and pop an arm on there, and repeat for the other side. It doesn't really matter which arm goes first. The arms honestly seat in pretty well. It's a very nicely engineered little joint, but if you find you need to put some pressure on those arms, make sure you're pushing the left arm on the elbow, not on the saber blade. Okay, Ahsoka is ready for priming and painting. Thanks for watching, and until next time, do something epic.